Bobby, we welcome you back here. What's on the Warriors' to-do list this offseason?
Well, the number one thing, George, is clarity on the future of Jonathan Kuminga here. He is one of the 4 restricted free agents that has not been signed right now. He has an $8 million qualifying offer. That contract is binding. And basically, the future of Kuminga is keeping the Warriors in a holding pattern as far as what they can do as far as going out and signing other players right now here. So we're going to certainly keep an eye on Kuminga. The second thing is what Mike Dunleavy Jr. said. There's got to be a patching up the front court here. When you look at the roster right now, they've got Quentin Post, who was on a two-way last year, and they converted Trace Jackson-Davis. There is a glaring hole at the center position. Draymond Green, of course, played primarily at center a lot last year. And then the third is replacing the glue guys. When you look at Kevon Looney, who is now in New Orleans, Gary Payton II is still unsigned. It's finding those type of players that can kind of do the dirty work. George, they've got 9 players under contract right now. 15 is the max in the NBA. There's certainly work to do in Golden State. The question is going to be, how does the future of Kuminga dictate as far as what are those other parts that are going to be added to this roster?
Great stuff as always, Bobby. Thank you so much. All right, the Warriors over-under win total has been set at 46.5 at ESPN Bet Sportsbook. That's right around the 48 win mark that the Warriors had last season. So let's get back with our panel here. Mark, you're as plugged into the Warriors as anyone. What do you expect here over the next several weeks?
Frustration.
Oh, okay. All right. That's one emotion.
Kuminga's situation is complicated, man. They're
it's like a Facebook. Remember when Facebook used to have those status updates and it would say it's complicated? It's like that. I'm dating myself, but
no, I agree with you. His agent met with the Warriors last week. Still no answer. They're trying to figure it out. As Bobby mentioned, it's holding everything else up. What they want to do. And then obviously the one that everybody's worrying about is Al Horford. Like, what's going to happen with Al Horford? You know, Golden State obviously expected him to sign last week. He didn't. Lakers, Milwaukee, Atlanta, I believe, are also interested in the nearly 40-year-old guy who also has retirement on the table.
Right.
He's still considering retiring. He's not in any hurry. He's got a 6th kid coming on the way. He lives in Atlanta and Boston in the offseason. But I'm hearing that whether it's Golden State or, you know, lesser extent if it's the Lakers, like being away from his family that far isn't going to be in that decision. But keep in mind, know who I think is going to be in this decision?
Who?
His 10-year-old son, Ian.
Okay.
He just started traveling with Al on the road like 2 seasons ago. Kid loves basketball. I know he's like, Dad, Steph Curry, Dad. Like,
all the kids love Steph Curry, man. I know that.
I could see Ian convincing his dad to keep playing.
Tim, let me ask you this.
Shout out to Ian.
What is the market for Kuminga and Horford even at this point?
Well, look, until Al Horford either retires or signs somewhere else, the assumption around the league is that he will end up with the Warriors. I would tell Warriors fans, relax on that one. I think things are going to turn out in your favor there. Kuminga is certainly complicated, but there's not much of a market for him. Right. He would love to go somewhere that values him as a star, that sees him as a focal point for their offense, which clearly Steve Kerr doesn't. Steve Kerr was DNP-CD in this guy during the playoffs. He has said multiple times he doesn't think he's a fit with Steph and with Jimmy Butler when they have both of those guys healthy, which is, you know, that 22-5 lineup. But the simple fact of the matter is this: if there's not a market for Kuminga, there's not some kind of sign and trade situation in the summer, then it's probably in both parties' best interest to do some sort of maybe like a smaller version of the Jalen Green deal, you know, a 3-year deal with a player option, that sort of thing. The kind of deal that, quite frankly, is designed to try to be traded as soon as he's eligible on December 15th. Now, if that happens, Steve Kerr, you got to play in the first couple months of the season. You got to showcase the guy if the whole point is you're trying to move him at not even the deadline, the first day he's eligible.
Right, for sure. All right, UD, you've been around a ton of superstars at different points in their careers, but including the tail ends of their careers. So how much pressure do you think is on the Warriors front office to improve this roster?
I mean, I don't know if it's on their front office to improve the roster because of what's going on right now with other teams in the West, but I'll just say with their team particularly, the pressure to improve the roster is you saw your weaknesses like glaringly in the playoffs last year. You saw the lack of size glaringly against Minnesota last year. You saw the lack of athleticism glaringly against Minnesota last year. So when you talk about bringing in Al, I love Al. I would love for him to finish his career with a guy like Steph. He's a guy who's definitely going to space the floor and knock down some threes, but he does not address your needs. He does not address the need of athleticism when you talk about bringing in another guy who's older, and he does not address the need of having size. When you look around the West right now, everybody has size. When you talk about what Houston has with Jabari Smith and that length, KD and that length, bringing in Sengun, still having Sengun, and having Adams come back and bringing in Capella. When you look at what Denver's been able to do, when you look at what OKC's been able to do, when you look at Minnesota and still having Randall and all these guys have length and athleticism. You are not addressing length and athleticism by just bringing in Al.
In Las Vegas, where the summer league's going on right now, with a bunch of potential suitors as to, teams that can work out a sign and trade for Kuminga, because there's not a lot of teams around the league right now that have any real cap space to absorb a restricted free agent offer sheet. And we know over the past couple of weeks, there have been a few teams that have been involved in the mix for Kuminga. We heard about the rumored Sacramento Kings package that included Devin Carter and Dario Saric. We also heard about the Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls. They were the two teams that were most closely linked to Kuminga at the start of free agency, but now we're a full 2 weeks later and nothing is really materialized on that front. And this all comes from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, where he says that there's no real sweepstakes that exists here for Jonathan Kuminga. The Kings were never close to any deal to get JK to Sacramento. The Heat were really never close to a deal either, and then they go out and trade for Norman Powell, so the $24 million player there, and you can kind of count them out of trading for Kuminga at this point, it feels like, as they're going to roll into the season with Andrew Wiggins. We can talk more about potential Wiggins reunion in Golden State in a little bit, but as for this offseason, doesn't look like that's realistic. The Bulls are another team that I've actually loved a couple of players and their fits in Golden State, but they traded away Lonzo Ball, a player who I would have welcomed back in a deal. They go out there and draft Noah Esenge. And by the way, in that Lonzo deal, they get back Isaac Okoro. So they draft an athletic, raw prospect wing, and they bring in another guy, kind of in that front court mold in Isaac Okoro, where that would create a kind of a logjam for Kuminga in Chicago. And the Bulls' interest was quote-unquote quieted substantially. And really, how much interest was there ever? I just kind of feel like they were being thrown around in rumors. It doesn't seem like they were ever all that interested in a Kuminga trade. More from Brett Siegel here on the situation, as there could be a couple more teams that could be interested in a Kuminga sign and trade. As he says, sources have some have speculated that the Utah Jazz, Brooklyn Nets, or Charlotte Hornets could get involved in the restricted free agency field specifically for Kuminga. However, in conversations at NBA Summer League, none of these three teams appear to be in the market to pursue JK. So where does that leave us now? Oh my God. I'm still probably going to get hate in the comments section for what I'm about to say right now, but clearly we know at this point, nobody wants the guy. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants to pay him. Nobody wants to create any sort of financial, jump through any hoops to go out there and create space to go out and absorb Jonathan Kuminga. Nobody wants the guy. And it clearly seems at this point that the Warriors have overvalued him. Just plain and simple. They drafted him 7th overall. They've tried to slowly but surely develop him, but never really fit into the rotation. And now he's being overvalued to the point of, oh yeah, he's only 22 years old. He's already been a 16-point per game scorer. There's still untapped potential there. Well, he's entering year 5 of his NBA career. And the free agency market, yes, it has been bleak this summer, but nobody wants him. And nobody wants to jump through the hoops that it will take to open up a slot to absorb his contract. Because with the restricted free agency, how it works in the CBA, a new team has to obviously sign him to a new deal, but the Warriors can only take back half of what that new deal costs. So it's a very tricky situation. There aren't a lot of suitors out there for Kuminga, and not only a sign and trade, but to just bring him a part of the roster completely, because he's shown that he is a low IQ player and just really has not been polished enough over these 4 seasons that he's been a professional to warrant a big money contract that he and his team are demanding at this point. So that brings us to this. Brett Siegel saying the following. He says, in Kuminga's case, a return to the Warriors continues to be likely. Various high-ranking members of the organization would like Kuminga back, the only team in the goddamn league, including owner Joe Lacob. Ultimately, the expectation from rival teams around the NBA is that Kuminga will go back to the Warriors with the mutual understanding that he will be moved before the trade deadline in February. This is a clown show. This is a legitimate clown show of an organization, and it is downright disrespectful, and it's quite frankly embarrassing that Wardell, Steph, and Curry has to just deal with this on a daily basis. I mean, what the hell is going on in Golden State? This has disaster written all over it. I mean, think come October, when the season's ramping up, and we hear all this stuff. Oh yeah, Kuminga's been in the offseason. He's been working on that jumper. He's hitting tons against no defense in an open gym all summer long. By the way, when he was doing that, he shot like 50% in wide open gym. It's god-awful numbers. You bring him back into the rotation next season. You play him alongside Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, which, by the way, the head coach said that he could not do if he wanted to win basketball games. He said that if he wanted to win games, he could not play this guy big-time minutes next to his 3 best players. So what does that tell you? He doesn't like the fit of the player on his roster. He doesn't think he can contribute to winning in the best version of the roster or the rotation that he can compile. So you're going to bring him in. It's going to be a bunch of just disaster when it comes to fit. Kuminga wanting to be the man when really he should just be a complimentary player, which I think he could actually be very good at, like cutting off of the ball, being a screener, chasing down rebounds, being a hustle guy, going and getting every 50-50 ball. Like, I think he could do a really good job at that because he has all the things that you can't teach, like unreal athleticism and just quickness and just raw athletic talent. Like, he has that. But as a polished basketball player and things in between the ears you need to be a successful Golden State Warrior, he doesn't have it. And bringing him back next season would just create more awkwardness and probably lead to losing more basketball games early in the season when in reality you need to conserve the bodies of Steph, Jimmy, Draymond during these last couple years of their career during the regular season so you can make postseason pushes. I want the team that's out there in October to be the team that's contending out there in April, May, and potentially June. Bringing back Kuminga doesn't do that, in my opinion, especially when there's a black cloud hanging over everybody's head that he's going to be traded, and who knows if you could actually find a trade partner during the season that will take on that deal. Who knows? But we'll see when it all unfolds, and look to be likely signings coming to Golden State whenever the Kuminga dust settles and he gets re-signed or they find a sign and trade partner. It feels like these two guys are going to be the next key signings for Golden State this offseason and factor to be pretty big parts of this rotation heading into next season and contending for a championship. Brett Siegel saying this on the Al Horford front. We're going to get to Horford first, and then we'll talk Melton. He says, although he has been linked to a few other teams, the expectation from other teams outside of the Warriors at Summer League is that the 39-year-old won't retire and that he will indeed play his 19th NBA season with the Golden State Warriors. That's awesome. That's awesome news. Like, I think Horford can still provide a ton even at age 39. Like, if you go back and watch what he did in the postseason, you watch the past couple of years with the Celtics and what he contributed to their championship run back in 2024. Like, this guy can still play, can still get up and down the floor. And Curry was asked as he was at a celebrity golf pro-am this weekend about the prospect of signing Al Horford, because that has been the name that the Warriors have been most closely linked to in the external unrestricted free agency circuit this offseason so far. And he said, he's a champion, great player. And then he said, when? And then stopped himself, said, when all that stuff happens, I'll talk about it. So did he let that big W word there slip with the when there with Horford signing with Golden State? Look, I think it would be an awesome fit, and this is a player who has the opportunity to not only be a big part of the Warriors rotation, playing big-time minutes at age 39 next year, but also could be a mentor to a guy like Quentin Post. The Warriors are investing a lot into, as they have not brought in any centers this offseason, and they have let a guy like Kevon Looney walk in free agency. So, like, they're investing a lot into Quentin Post, and I think Al Horford would be the perfect mentor for him to be able to do so. Like, he's still a guy who can honestly move a little bit on the defensive end. Yeah, if you get him caught in a high pick and roll with like a small guard or something like that, he'll get lost. But like, so on wings, on bigs, like, he can move with some of these mobile guys at those positions. And obviously down low, he's a great rim protector as well. A great passer. I think he'll fit right into the Warriors' offensive scheme and can hit the outside shot at a 40% clip. Like, there's not a lot to not like about Al Horford. I know a lot of people are just looking at that age 39. They're like, yeah, he's washed. No, he is not. He can absolutely play at a super, super high level. And I look forward to the eventual signing if and when it actually ends up happening. Let's shift to DeAnthony Melton here, though, as we've heard a couple of reports from some talented guys around the league. Mark Stein of the Stein Line, and then Brett Siegel again here, Stein says that Golden State has emerged as a strong contender to bring back DeAnthony Melton after he was originally with Golden State at the start of last season. And he says that this report coincides with something that he's heard earlier in the offseason as well. So these two sides have been linked all summer long. And Press Siegel kind of said the same thing. And Melton, quote unquote, could take a minimum contract for the right situation. Now, what would the right situation entail? Well, you can kind of look to last season when he was factoring into be either a six-man or in the starting unit for Golden State when the first 6 games that he played for Golden State, and he actually had been missing a little bit of time at the start of last season because the Warriors, when he had gone down with a torn ACL, had been 12-3. So it's 15 games. He'd already missed 9 at the start of the season, but when he was on the floor, he was really, really solid, man. Getting up 6 threes a game, shooting into 37% clip, like playing good defense. He was taking a lot of the on-ball, like initiation duties away, letting Steph work off of the ball, and they were looking to be a really, really good tandem there in the backcourt. I would love to bring back Melton on a vet minimum contract, and if he's willing to come to a vet minimum deal, he's going to see the opportunity in this Warriors rotation. I think he'll be one of the first 2 guards off of the bench, and you won't have to look to a guy like Gary Payton in a lot of these situations anymore. Melton is a true two-way guard. The biggest question with him is if he can stay healthy, which he has not been able to do over the past couple of seasons, but I'm all in on bringing him in on a vet minimum deal. Some other free agency targets that have been floated around by Siegel and some other NBA insiders in the Golden State front include Malcolm Brogdon. I wouldn't be opposed to that if the Melton thing falls through. Even if Melton ends up signing Golden State, like 2 guys who have some injury concerns, like their health hasn't been the best throughout their entire careers. So I wouldn't be opposed to bring both Melton and Brogdon in here on vet minimum deals, but who knows if Brogdon can get a little bit more. Trey Lyles will give you a little bit of shooting in the front court, just a floor spacer there. Guy can rebound the ball a little bit. I like his fit in Golden State and is a smart basketball player. Like I think he would be fine in the Warriors' offensive scheme.
The Golden State Warriors have hit pause, but not because they want to. Their offseason is carefully frozen. Bobby Marks outlined their cap limitations and NBA insiders updated on Jonathan Kuminga's restricted free agency. And with these, it's well understood that no move can happen until the Kuminga dust settles. Let's take a look at the full picture, stripped of the noise and rooted in contract realities. Jonathan Kuminga hasn't signed a new contract, and that single fact has almost paralyzed the Warriors' offseason. According to NBA insiders, Golden State has already extended a qualifying offer near $7.9 million. It gives them the right to match offers, but they're not rushing. Teams like Miami, Chicago, and Sacramento have expressed interest. However, no formal offer has landed yet. Sacramento briefly explored a sign and trade, but that stalled eventually. The Warriors reportedly don't want to send him within the West. So far, no team has put money on the table that forces Golden State's hand. Notably, Kuminga wants clarity, while the team wants flexibility. That's where the idea of a short-term deal enters. Sources suggest Golden State may offer a temporary contract, likely a 1-year deal with restricted free agent protections. The expectation is that he plays early season minutes, boosts his market value, and gets moved by the February trade deadline. So, until Kuminga's number is locked in, nothing else can move. Now, to Bobby Marks. In a recent media interview, he laid out 3 urgent priorities for the Warriors. First, set a clear path on Kuminga. Second, do not cross the first tax apron. And third, conserve trade assets. Marks didn't mince words. The new CBA hits hard. Under current rules, teams above the first apron can't aggregate salaries. They can't take back more than they send, and they lose mid-level exceptions. This is why Golden State is acting cautiously. They're currently about $25 million below the first apron, but if they blow past it by re-signing Kuminga at a high value, their hands are tied for trades. Marks also broke down the Warriors' future picks. It's one of their strongest trade levers. They hold a 2026 first-round pick, a top 20 protected 2028 first, an unprotected 2030 first, and full swap rights in 2032. That's enough to chase a veteran if the right name becomes available. But the problem is that without Kuminga's salary number, none of those picks can be packaged efficiently. If Kuminga re-signs at $18 to $20 million, he becomes the primary matching contract. Until then, they don't have enough salary depth to swing a meaningful deal. Draymond Green has already aired his frustration with the slow market. And to be honest, he doesn't seem to be wrong. Veterans like Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, and even Ben Simmons have been linked to Golden State, but the team can't act. Any new contract risks pushing them past the first apron. And once that happens, their flexibility dies. They can't combine player salaries, sign and trade, or use exceptions. That's why Horford hasn't signed. Bobby Marks warned teams in this cap range to move slow. If another team had made a formal offer for Kuminga, the Warriors might have already triggered a sign and trade. However, under the CBA, outgoing salary in a sign and trade counts as 50%. So, if Kuminga gets $20 million, he counts as just $10 million outbound. To receive a $20 million player, Golden State would need to pair him with other salaries. They don't have those salaries unless they sign depth players first, but signing depth risks the apron limit. It's a deadlock. That's why they're probably offering Kuminga a short-term contract directly so he becomes a clean trade chip later, without CBA headaches. Some fans read this as Golden State slipping into irrelevance. It's the opposite. This is controlled restraint. If they re-sign Kuminga properly and stay below the first apron, they can trade him mid-season with picks. That could bring in a starter-level wing, a rim protector, or a volume scorer, whatever the roster lacks by November. Mike Dunleavy Jr. hasn't rushed anything. He knows the roster's limited but intact. Curry and Green are also not asking for desperation. They're asking for a smart step that builds playoff strength without wrecking future control. So that's the present shape of the offseason. No Horford yet, nor any depth signings are there. However, the Warriors are holding the Kuminga card. Once they play it, everything moves. Expect activity within days of his signature. Until then, watch the margins, listen to the insiders, and don't blink when it finally drops. Stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't already.